You've probably seen this item, or others like it, advertised across all different social media platforms. This little contraption connects to your controller and is meant to give you steering wheel-like accuracy in any driving game with just your controller. It's also meant to save you spending... how much? Apparently, anywhere from £250 all the way up to over £1,000 on just a wheel and pedals. That's a lot of money. At £11 then, this thing could be an absolute steal for the racing-focused gamer, and more compatible too. So, is it any good? Delivery was as expected. It's a small company, so I wasn't expecting tracking details the same day as I placed the order. About a week after the purchase, I was notified that the package had shipped and was coming to me from China via Yun Express. It took about another week and a half to actually reach me, so expect a long turnaround if you do buy this item after watching this video. Upon receipt, it was packaged very simply, but also very securely. It arrived in this bubble wrap envelope with the name of the item literally stuck on it. I'm therefore quite glad that no one in the delivery chain actually wanted one of these things. There was a lot of tape wrapped around, meaning I needed scissors to get in. Once inside the primary envelope, there is some additional shock protection for the enclosed box. The box easily slides out of this, opens and presents you with the WheelGrip device inside a Ziploc bag. While every individual aspect of the packaging is fairly simplistic, when combined, they offer a large amount of protection for my purchase, which I am grateful for. For £11 as well, this is a lot of care given to ensure that the item reaches you in one piece. But now that the WheelGrip is free, what are my initial impressions? Unfortunately, this thing is 3D printed, and like most 3D printed items that you get off the likes of Etsy, AliExpress and co, the printing isn't that high quality. You can see every layer of the print and feel it under your fingers. They've gone for the widest possible print margins to use the smallest amount of plastic possible to maximise their profit. While I understand the practice, these are prints from a friend of mine. You can see that the quality is different immediately, even though he's using the same filament print process as the WheelGrip. Any print lines present are much smaller than those on the WheelGrip. The surface is much smoother, and while it takes longer to print, the final product is much sturdier and far higher quality. It also only costs a few pennies more to make it this way. For something that is going to be sliding around under your fingers during game time, like the WheelGrip, the approach that my friend takes with his prints would be much better for this accessory, as it creates smoother surfaces to interact with. It may seem a touch nitpicky as the very first impression, but this sort of thing matters greatly for this sort of accessory. My other initial impressions, however, are pretty impressive. The bearing that is used for rotating the wheel is smooth and responsive. The thumb grips are appropriate for a wide range of users in both their size and positioning. The cutout for a cable to be connected offers wider compatibility with PC, mobile and Mac now being able to use the controller. The teeth on the rotating mechanism are solidly made and smooth in their action, and the grip mechanism for attaching to the controller is similar to remote play accessories for the PlayStation 5. I therefore go to put the WheelGrip onto my DualSense controller and encounter challenge number 1. Now bear in mind I'm running blind here. There are no instructions of any description included with the accessory. Other than the marketing gifs, there's nothing on their website either on how to connect the WheelGrip to your controller. I managed to get the overall accessory attached pretty easily. It just clips over the front of your controller. But then I needed to attach this little grip to the left thumbstick, which didn't slide into place as on the marketing videos. So I took the whole thing off, faffed as best I could, and after 2 minutes of attempting different angles, somehow got it to attach. If you ask me exactly how, I can't tell you. I just continued to mess and faff until something new happened. But now it's attached, let's play a game and see how it performs. Enter challenge number 2. This lovely accessory, at least on the PlayStation version, sits over the top of the PlayStation button on the controller. You know, the button that turns on both the controller and the console itself. I hoped the manufacturer had thought of this, so pressed down on the middle of the wheel, hoping there was a mechanism to then press the PlayStation button underneath. There actually is. There is a moving nub that is activated by pressing the middle of the steering wheel. But even though this thing is present, it does not reach in to press the PlayStation button to turn the controller, and by extension, the console on. So I removed the accessory once more, with more difficulty this time due to the thumbstick grip being attached. Pressed the PlayStation button to turn the controller and console on, then faff for 3 more minutes to reattach the accessory, all the while randomly navigating my PlayStation console. I did enter into an incorrect game while getting the accessory reattached, which meant I then had to remove it once more to access the PlayStation button so I could navigate back to the home screen to get into the correct game to then reattach the accessory. I'd like to highlight that I have not yet had a single moment of game time with the wheel grip attached, and I have had to remove and replace it on the controller 3 separate times. It is not therefore an accessory that can just be there and be used. It isn't one that allows you to play multiple driving games in one sitting easily. It is an accessory that requires you to plan its use ahead of time, because it does lock off certain aspects of your controller and therefore console. If, however, it makes the driving game experience better, heightens it beyond a standard controller and towards the likes of an actual steering wheel controller, then I can definitely see value despite the challenges that I have already faced. So, Assetto Corsa Competizione, one of the premier sim racing games. New save on the PlayStation 5 version. Let's see how the wheel grip does. Initial impressions sat in the pits are pretty good. When I turn the wheel on the controller, there is an identical and immediate likewise motion in-game. I have somewhat forgotten how sensitive Assetto Corsa is though, and immediately careen into the wall at the Nürburgring's first corner. Later in the lap, I start to get my bearings back. I'm able to use the wheel grip to execute a tank slapper save after coming out of one corner and dipping a wheel on the grass. And coming up to the hairpin, I actually feel pretty good. I've got a smooth run up using the wheel grip to precisely guide the car around the previous sweeping corner and position myself okay for the hairpin itself. But I encounter a bit of a challenge at the hairpin. The car simply won't turn. I have severe understeer. To a point so bad I end up in the wall at the exit of the corner, just slowly drifting further and further wide. There was nothing I could do. Turning further in this scenario just wasn't possible. My wheel was already at full lock. I was feathering the throttle as I needed to, and short of slamming the power on and hoping that the tail kicked around, I was a passenger into the wall. This isn't a scenario that I have encountered in this game before. So out of curiosity, I took the wheel grip off, and the car immediately improved. It had harder turns available, which meant tight chicanes, hairpins, and 90-degree plus corners were all possible, even when completely missing my braking and turn-in points. It appeared as if the wheel grip had actively hampered me rather than helped me. That's not a scenario one wants to find themselves in, paying for an accessory that actively makes their experience worse. But this experience is only the one game so far, so it might just be the interaction with Assetto Corsa. So let's try Gran Turismo 7. Maybe a different game offers a different experience. First thing I do is try a test lap, and on the first sweeping left-hander, the same thing happens. I understeer, run wide, and have to try again for track limits violations. I get the same on a second attempt, and on a third attempt, I do make it round the corner, but cannot make the next S's apex with any accuracy, and fail once again for track limits. I'm still not fully convinced it is an issue with the wheel grip though. It's likely I just need to get used to it. So I jump into a quick race at Bathurst. It's a track that I know well, and have actually physically driven round. I'm actually able to complete both laps of the race, and win it. Granted, we're on the beginner option here due to my faltering confidence in the wheel grip. However, I do notice that aspects of the race are far superior to my normal controller gameplay. Take this drag down the Conrod straight into the chase as one example. It is a series of a long straight into a sweeping full throttle right-hander before slamming on the brakes for a left-right switchback before a run to the final corner and pit straight. On controller, I regularly cock up the chase section. I'm either overturning the sweeping right or not getting my steering angle correct for the left-right sequence. With the wheel grip, however, I'm able to glide through the entire sector, though apexes are still a challenge. At the top of the mountain in the skyline section, look at how smoothly I move the wheel to facilitate this overtake. Open the steering slightly, apply a bit more throttle, and run the overtake round the outside before sweeping back in before the dipper. But these positives are overshadowed by Forrest's Elbow, a mighty tight left-hander that brings you onto the Conrod straight. Nail this, and you're on for an overtake into the chase. Fail it, even by a little, and you're the one likely being overtaken, if you and the wall have not become very well acquainted otherwise. I just could not make the Forrest's Elbow work. First time, understeer into the outside wall. Second time, despite spot-on positioning to turn in, completely whiff the apex. And both times, I was using full lock on the wheel grip accessory. I drifted wide out of McPhillamy Park into the skyline and ended up in the gravel. And the dipper was a bit of luck each time, hoping I'd make the next corner in some fashion and not always doing so. I tried about 4 more games on the PlayStation, and also tried things like Disney Speedstorm, Monoposto, and Real Racing 3 on mobile, Asphalt Legends Unite, Trackmania, and even Rocket Racing on PC. And no matter the game or platform, this understeer issue persisted. I therefore had my partner look at the accessory. She's an engineer, and once she got past the questions of why does this piece of crap exist, she saw a few issues with the design that, once pointed out, were really hard to miss. Issue 1 and 2 were to do with my understeer. In one direction, so turning left, the wheel grip simply doesn't move the analog stick to its full extent. It stops about 2mm short of its maximum movement range. While 2mm does not sound like much, it is a lot in terms of controller stick travel. Turning to the right, so the opposite direction, while having the same understeer issue, is actually caused by a different design flaw. It just runs into itself long before the stick's travel is maximized. That is 2 different issues that both cause understeer and undermine the entire point of this accessory through poor design. She wasn't done, however. She also pointed out that the teeth on the turning mechanism were too large for precision. There is a noticeable wobble between each tooth, and a dead zone where you can turn the wheel, but not the mechanism. Again, while seeming small, in terms of a thumbstick, this is quite impactful. A set of smaller and more numerous teeth with a tighter spread would be much better for such an accessory. All of this, the poor design, the cheap 3D printing, the negative experience in 12 games across 3 platforms, comes together and brings me to the conclusion that this thing just isn't worth the money. It makes your game actively harder and sometimes just downright impossible. Poor design and lackluster manufacturing has the very accessory itself undermining its entire point of being. This saddens me, because there are moments where my gameplay is better for having this thing attached. Having access to the nuance that a steering wheel offers on a controller is incredible. But the implementation doesn't match up to the marketing or expectation. Somebody, somewhere, will be able to overcome the flaws that I have encountered with a better design and print process. But until they do, until someone improves this accessory out of sight, for now, if you want a steering wheel-like experience in your driving games, you're still going to need to spend that big money and buy a steering wheel controller. This video was produced after 3 weeks testing of the WheelGrip DualSense accessory from WheelGrip Co. The WheelGrip was purchased and paid for personally by Doragon. The company do not know that this video is being made, they do not get any copy approval or early preview of its contents. If they do see it, they will see it for the first time, right alongside you. I would like to thank you all so much for tuning in. If you've liked this video, I think these will also be of interest to you. In the meantime, my name is Doragon. You can find me on threads at Doragon86 or in the Discord in the description. And until next time, folks, have yourselves a fantastic day and take care.